Yeah, so I mean the whole project really started with Shane Davis, who plays the poet in the film, and it's his piece of spoken word poetry that the whole film is built around. He'd done a project with Shane Serrano, the director, years ago, and they'd always sort of had this as a project that they wanted to develop. So that there was a film scheme in Limerick that basically funded. I think they funded two films that year, and that was sort of an opportunity. Um, with Shane Serrano, then I'd worked with him on lots of music videos and corporate sort of things, and we'd been wanting to do a project together like this for a long time. So Imbas really felt like, something exciting with a lot of interesting production problems to solve. Um, I'm fairly sure that the funders, when we went in to pitch it, didn't really know exactly what we were talking about and what the film was, because as you can imagine, pitching something like this can be a bit confusing. But there was no denying the enthusiasm of the three of us, and there was definitely a team there that was going to work together. So that's how it all came together. But I mean, ultimately, I'm attracted to projects like this that are unusual, that have something different to say. That that will take a little bit of work to realize exactly how it's all going to work. Um, but I'm really happy with what we put together. So yeah, I mean, it started there. It started with Shane Davis. He's he's not a million miles away from the character in the film, to be perfectly honest. He's um, he's a spoken word poet. He's a rapper. He's involved with a group called the Pagan Rave, where the costumes came from. And then we were really lucky as well that we had the support of Billy McGlynn, who's a folklorist who who was able to sort of provide a lot of context and to answer some of the questions as to why we were including some of the things in the film. So that's sort of the genesis of it, and that's sort of where it came from. Yeah, it's an ambitious one, and it's I'm particularly proud of the fact that the majority of the people who worked on it are from the Midwest region or from Limerick predominantly. Um, just because I'm not sure that a project like this would have been possible even a decade ago. So it's it it was very much led by Shane Serrano, the director. He's got a background in music and in music video, so the sort of combination of visual to you know to oral to spoken is something that he's quite good at. Now that being said, there was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of making sense of the script and trying to avoid cliche, um, and that took a lot of work. Shane Davis was very involved in that process as well, and then just sort of calibrating exactly what was going to be possible took a bit of doing. I remember at one stage that the other world was going to be, the inside of a heart or something, which was never going to be possible. But just looking at the resources that we had, and being able to sort of liaise with people, like we filmed the otherworld sequence in the Irish Aviation Center. um Sorry, the Irish Aerial Creation Center, sorry. Which was this amazing, gave us amazing heights and was a great space to film in, but it's had big windows on the top of the roof, so we had to make sure that we filmed at night. So all of that was yeah, with increasingly exhausted crews. Um, but yeah, it was also down a lot to our editor, so Phil Shanahan, who edited it. Like there's so much work in there that you don't see. There's one shot that I love, which is that aerial shot over the city where you see the river. And something that I don't think anyone will notice ever is that in the ground level shot, you can see a boat. So in the aerial shot, Phil had to add that boat back in and match it perfectly just to make sure. And that was sort of the level of detail that we were getting into, just to make sure that everything was coherent, everything flowed, and everything was obviously visually interesting. So, you know, that's just an example of the sort of passion that was going into the project. You know, that's what people were giving to it to make sure that everything worked, and nobody held back on this one. It took a while, but I'm really happy with the result. Yeah, that's a really interesting question. There's I think it sort of works on a couple of levels. The main thing that I've gotten from watching Imbus with an audience is the fact that it is, you know, even if you haven't a clue what's going on with it, it's a very immersive experience, and just allowing yourself to get sort of into the flow of the experience, I think is an important part of this. That it's not just a case of decoding what everything means and, you know, necessarily trying always to have your analytical brain on. Like, it does wash over you, and that's kind of part of the point. That said, I mean, the reflection on sort of the role and purpose of pagan ritual and ritual in general in our day-to-day lives and in sort of the contemporary world is something that bears reflecting on. There is a sort of a wave of interest in pagan ritual in Ireland at the moment, as you know, as everyone tries to make sense of everything that's going on in the world. Finding new ways to make sense of things, I think, is important. And yeah, like the Imbas Forosnai ritual itself seems like a really interesting focal point around which to build that examination. And even just going through the film myself, like through the process of it, I think I've sort of changed my relationship with you know, with pagan ideals and with ritual. Just as like an example, when we were filming at the stone circle, so that's where the ritual itself takes place. Um, that was a one night shoot, and so we were under a bit of pressure to get everything in that night. And because it's August in Ireland, we had no idea what the weather was going to be like. I mean, I was literally, you know, ringing ringing to get the weather forecast hours before we started shooting, and being told that they didn't know how it was going to go. So at the start of the shoots, we made a point of giving an offering to the fairies, just on the off chance that they might not like the fact that we were filming in the ring fort, or in the stone circle. So we gave them a mojito, and that's it. They seemed to like that because the rain stayed away right up until the second that the first AD shouted that it was a wrap, and as soon as she said that, it started raining. So I'm not saying that I believe any of that sort of stuff, but it's definitely worth investing a bit of yourself into it. Yeah, it's continuing its festival run. It's played a few places now. It's, I mean, you can imagine with something like this, it's um, not every festival is going to take it, but you know, those who have, we've had some joy and some success. I'm trying to think where our next one is, and irritatingly I can't because I've got too many shorts on the go at the moment to remember. But I know that's a big one for us, is that we're going to be playing in Newport Beach. So we won the Newport Beach Awards at the Richard Harris Film Festival in Limerick, and that takes us over to Newport. So I know that Shane Serrano and possibly Shane Davis will be heading over for that one, and that'll be a big deal. So that's good fun. In terms of longer plans, I know that it's the sort of project that doesn't go away. I'm sure that we'll be revisiting the concept again. Um, I think it's definitely a subject that's worth examining and meditating on a bit more. There are some ideas as to what to do with it next, but they're very much in the idea stage, and God, we all need to find the time to sit down and work out what we're actually doing with it next. I'm sure it's not the last time that we're all going to work together, though, because it was too interesting and satisfying a project not to go again.